The room grows still, not abruptly, but as if the world itself was deciding to stop fidgeting. Shadows soften along the walls. The light dims without fading, settling into quiet, even glow. Harsh edges lose definition. Nothing flickers, nothing strains. Breath slows. The air cools just enough to be noticed. Not cold, not warm, but balanced. Pain loosens its grip. The body, even before the mind understands it, begins to rest. Thanatos does not announce himself. He does not open doors or cross thresholds in the ways that others do. One moment, the space is occupied only by the living. The next, it is shared with a divine creature. He stands at the bedside, unarmed, unhurried, but always certain. His presence does not demand surrender. It invites it. Time feels different near him, not stopped, but resolved. The future loses its urgency. The past releases its weight. There is only this moment, held gently, waiting for resistance to simply fade. This is how death arrives when it is not violent. It is quiet, complete, inevitable. And Sisyphus, watching from his bed, feels the world settle into stillness and smiles. The capture of Thanatos. For a long moment, nothing happens. Thanatos stands at the bed, as he always does, waiting for the final loosening, the breath that does not return, that will no longer cling to things. He never needed to hurry. Mortals always reach the same end on their own. And Sisyphus watches him carefully, but not with fear, with close attention. His body is weak, his breath is shallow, but his mind is awake, moving quietly beneath the stillness of the room. He feels the calm pressing in, the invitation to let go, and it would be easy to accept, easier than anything he has ever done. And yet, Sisyphus speaks. Not loudly, not urgently. His voice barely disturbs the air. "You come gently," he said. "I did not expect that." Thanatos does not answer at all first. He doesn't need to. But neither does he stop Sisyphus from speaking. Words, after all, cannot delay death. "They say you bind the living," Sisyphus continues, gesturing weakly towards the chains laying carefully beside the bed. "That when your work is finished, no one resists you." Thanatos turns his gaze, not sharply, not suspiciously, but with mild attention one gives to curiosity. "These," Sisyphus says softly, lifting the chains with trembling hands, "are well made, strong and precise. I would understand your work better if I could see how they were used." Thanatos hesitates, not because he is wary, but because he has never been asked. He steps closer, reaches out, and demonstrates, patiently, gently, without urgency. These chains close, smooth and certain, just as they have countless times before. Only this time, they close on him. The room does not explode in chaos. There is no thunder, no scream, no resistance. Thanatos looks down at the chains, then back to Sisyphus, and for the first time, death does not move forward. For the first time, the moment does not complete itself. Sisyphus exhales, a breath he should not have taken. Death has been delayed. The world without an ending. The stillness does not leave the room, but still it spreads. Across the world, something falters. Blades strike flesh and do not finish their work. The wounded linger, unable to cross the threshold. The old remains suspended in pain, waiting for a release that does not come. Battles rage endlessly. Suffering stretches without resolution. Life without death does not become precious. It can become unbearable. And Thanos stands bound, silent, neither struggling nor pleading. He does not rage. Rage would change nothing. He waits, because waiting is also part of his nature. And then the gods begin to notice. Ares frees Thanatos. The world begins to rot from the inside. Wounds do not close, and they do not end. Blood spills without release. Warriors fall and rise again, screaming, locked inside bodies that refuse to finish dying. Battlefields stretch on endlessly, victories never concluding, losses never settling. War becomes noise without resolution. And the god Ares sees it all, because this is his domain, not death, but ending through violence. And without death, even war is meaningless. And Ares descends to earth, not with patience, but with force. Where he arrives, the air tears, the ground shakes. Order does not soften, it breaks. He does not announce himself. He does not ask questions. He goes where the imbalance points him, and he finds Thanatos bound. The god of death stands silent in chains, unchained, uncomplaining. He has waited because waiting is what he does. Ares does not speak to Sisyphus. He does not scold. He does not threaten. He simply shatters the chains. Metal screams as it breaks. The stillness collapses. The air rushes back into motion as if it were released from a held breath. And Thanatos steps free. The room itself exhales, and without a word, death resumes. Across the world, screams cut out. Wounds close by finishing. The old finally find rest. Battles end, not because peace has arrived, but because conclusion has. Thanatos does not thank Ares. He does not linger, he simply continues. And in that moment, Sisyphus is taken. The second defiance. Sisyphus is taken, but not humbled. Even as Thanatos leads him away, his mind is already moving, measuring, listening, searching for the next seam in the order of things. He has already delayed death once. He has tasted the power of interruption, and he believes that he can do it again. Before his final breath leaves him, Sisyphus gives his wife careful instructions. No rites, no burial, no offerings to the gods. His body is to be left unhonored, unmarked, and incomplete. It is a small act of defiance, almost invisible, but Sisyphus understands the system well enough to know that the system is dependent on completion. A complaint in the underworld. In the realm below, Sisyphus does not scream or rage. He simply complains. He approaches Persephone, queen of the dead, not as a rebel, but as a wronged man. His voice is measured, his posture is respectful. I have been abandoned, he says, denied the rights that seal a life properly. I have been sent here dishonored. And Persephone listens, not because she is easily moved, but because the complaint is valid. The dead are owed their rights. Others depend on it. She grants him permission to return, to correct the failure, to ensure that what must be done is properly done. She gives him a temporary mercy. Sisyphus returns to the living world, and then he does not go back. He resumes his life as if nothing has changed. He walks under the sun, he eats, he laughs, he delays, stretching time thin, pretending ignorance. Days pass, and then years, and the gods watch. This is no longer cleverness, this is flat out contempt. When Sisyphus is finally taken. It does not happen suddenly. There is no thunder, no gods descending in fury, no hands reaching from the shadows. One morning, Sisyphus wakes and feels something different. The air is heavier, not hostile, just final. The sun rises but does not warm him. Food has lost its taste. Voices reach his ears a moment too late, as if the world has begun to move on without him. For the first time since his return, Sisyphus feels behind. He walks the halls of his palace and notices how small they feel, how familiar, how finished. He looks at the faces around him and realizes that none of them are looking back in the same way. Time has been moving, and he has not. And then he understands, not with fear, with clarity. There are no tricks left. Thanatos comes again, not bound, not delayed. He arrives as always, gently, precisely, without urgency. The room settles, the edges soften, and breath slows. And this time, Sisyphus does not smile. Thanatos does not accuse him. He does not remind him of past defiance. He simply stands, patient as ever, waiting for the moment to complete itself. Sisyphus looks at him and knows, finally, that this visitation is not a negotiation. He has already spent every allowance. The walk back. There is no struggle. Sisyphus rises where he stands and follows, not because he has accepted death, but because resistance has lost its shape. The clever paths have closed. The seams he once pried open are gone. As they move, the world begins to thin. Sounds dull. Colors flatten. Distances shorten. The living realm does not mourn him loudly. It simply releases him. And for the first time, Sisyphus feels something unfamiliar. Before the judgment. When he is brought before the gods, they do not shout. There is no anger in their voices, no need for it. What Sisyphus has done is already complete. That record is closed. They look at him not as an enemy, not as a hero, but as a man who mistook delay for victory, and they decide his fate without cruelty, without passion, and without precision. The stone. The stone waits at the base of the hill. It is larger than Sisyphus suspected, but not impossibly so, but undeniably real. Its surface is rough, unyielding, cold even in the dim light of the underworld. It does not glow. It does not hum with magic. It offers no hint of meaning. Just wait. The hill rises before him, long and bare. Its slope neither cruel nor forgiving. There is no summit in sight, only the knowledge that one exists. Sisyphus stands there for a moment longer than needed. He studies the incline. He measures the angle. Old habits surface. Somewhere in his mind, calculations begin to form. Pace, leverage, breath. He says how. And then he places his hands against the stone. The first push is awkward. His footing slips slightly. The stone resists, not violently, but stubbornly, as if it had never known movement and sees no reason to learn it. His muscles strain. Breath tightens in his chest. Slowly, the stone begins to roll. For the first time since his final descent, Sisyphus feels effort again. Not pain, not punishment, but effort. The stone moves upward, inch by inch. The sound it makes against the ground is dull and constant, a low scrape which fills the silence. There is no audience, no gods watch, no voice offers commentary. It is just him, the stone, and the hill. And for a moment, a dangerous moment, hope stirs. Progress is made. He adjusts his grip. He finds a rhythm. His steps become more confident. The slope steepens, but he adapts. This is work, and work he understands. Work that rewards persistence. Perhaps he thinks this is not endless. Perhaps there is an end after all. Then the summit comes into view, and with it, the truth. As the stone reaches the crest, its weight shifts. Not dramatically, not violently, just enough. His hands lose purchase, his footing falters, the stone pauses, and then it rolls back. Not fast, not angry, but it returns with certainty. Sisyphus watches it descend, feeling the effort drain out of his body as sound fades down the hill. The ground trembles faintly when he reaches the bottom, settling into place, exactly where it began. Silence returns. Sisyphus does not cry out. He does not curse the gods. He stands at the top of the hill, breathing hard, staring at the empty slope before him. This is when he understands, not that the task is difficult, but that it is perfectly designed. Every push feels like progress. Every failure will erase nothing but effort. Every ascent will teach him that movement is not the same as arrival. The punishment is not the stone, it is the repetition. And after the long moment, Sisyphus returns. He walks back down the hill. He places his hands on the stone again and again, as will be his fate. Epilogue. The hill remains, the stone remains. Time passes, though it no longer matters. Sisyphus pushes, the stone rolls back. The pattern continues unbroken. Above him, the world of living moves on without any notice. Seasons change, cities rise and fall, Names are spoken once, then forgotten. None of it reaches the slope where he works, and yet there's no screaming here, no punishment renewed with each ascent, no voice counting failures. Only motion, only breath, only the quiet weight until it loses urgencies. Thanatos does not return to watch. The gods do not observe. They have finished. Sisyphus pushes because the hill is there. He pushes because the stone waits. He pushes because pushing is all that remains. And something between the beginning and the end of the climb, the mind grows quiet. The thought loosens. Resistance fades in a rhythm. Not peace, but stillness. The stone rolls, the hill endures, and the story, like this task, does not end. It simply continues. The myth of Savitri and Yama, when devotion outwalks death. Now, in Indic mythology, Yama is the god of death. This is the first mortal to die and the first to discover what lies beyond life. He does not rule death through terror or conquest, but through precedent. He knows the path because he walked it first. He is not a demon lurking in darkness. He is a judge, a keeper of order, a figure of calm authority. He rides a buffalo, carries a noose not as a weapon, but as a symbol of inevitability, and presides over the passage every soul must eventually take. Yama is not evil. He is not cruel. He is law. In Indic thought, death is not a villain to be slain. It is a function, precise, inevitable, and impartial. Yama does not take pleasure in death, nor does he rush it. He enforces it because the universe requires balance, and balance requires ending. And Savitri does not challenge that. She does accept that. She early on made a choice with clear open eyes. Now, it must be said that Savitri is a mortal woman. She is not a goddess in disguise, not a heroine born to destiny, just a human, raised with discipline, clarity, and uncommon depth of mind. She's known for her devotion, her intelligence, and her ability to listen more than she speaks. When the time comes to choose a husband, she does not wait for fate to deliver it. She goes out into the world and chooses a man, Satyavan. They're simple. There's no divine spectacle, only recognition. But before the marriage, a seer warns her of what is to come. Satyavan is fated to die within a year, and this knowledge is precise. There is no hope of error. Savitri does not ask the prophecy to be undone. She does not look for another man. Savitri chooses her husband, knowing his fate is to die within this year. Not because she believes that fate can be tricked, not because she expects divine intervention. She chooses him anyway. And this matters because devotion chosen with full knowledge of loss is not desperation. It is resolve. And as prophecy had foretold, the time of Satyavan's death arrives. There is no chaos in this moment, no omen in the sky. Life simply reaches its appointed edge. And Yama comes soon after, as he always does. He is tall and composed, dark as shadow, but solid as law. He rides no storm and carries no fury. In his hand is a noose, not as a weapon, but simply a symbol of completion. His presence does not frighten by force, it silences by certainty. He is truly the specter of death. There is no drama, no cruelty, and no hesitation. Yama takes Satyavan's soul and turns to leave, carrying it towards its destined place. And Savitri does something that no one expects. As she grieves, as she watches death walk away with her husband, she does the only thing left for her to do. She follows. Not to fight, not to beg. She simply walks beside death. Yama moves along his path as he always had. It is not a road of fire or torment, but a narrowing of the world itself. The sounds of life thin out. What remains is quiet, steady, irreversible. This is not punishment, it is simply and then he notices her, a living woman walking beside him. Not stumbling, not dragging her feet, simply keeping pace. And Yama stops. He turns, his voice is calm without threat or anger. This is not your place, he tells her. The living do not follow the dead. Savitri does not argue. She does not even reach for her husband. She bows her head slightly and speaks, not to challenge death, but to address. You are Yama, she says, keeper of what must be. You do not take without reason, not act without duty. And Yama listens. Tell me, Savitri asks, what is righteousness, if not the faithful carrying out one's role? And what is duty, if not walking the path one has chosen without deviation? And as he turns, she walks again without speaking. A wife who abandons her husband at the edge of death has fulfilled her duty. A law that does not answer truth, can it still be called just? Savitri does not accuse, she does not demand, she simply asks. And because Yama is law, he must answer. And this is the power of measured speech. Yama listens as Savitri finishes speaking, and for a long moment the path is silent. Then the god of the dead answers, not with a rebuke, but with retribution. Your words are aligned with Dharma, he says. You have spoken without deceit, without fear, and without demand, and it is fitting that such clarity should be acknowledged. Yama turns towards her. Ask me a boon, he says, one that does not concern the life that I have taken. And Savitri bows her head. May my father regain his sight, she says, that he may see the world clearly once again. Yama inclines his head. Granted. They continue walking, and after some time, Yama speaks again. Ask another boon. Savitri answers softly. May my lineage endure and prosper, guided by righteousness and balance. Yama does not hesitate. Granted. They walk on. The silence stretches, and the world grows thinner still. And then Yama speaks for the third time. Ask again. Savitri lifts her eyes. May I bear children with my husband, she says, and may our union be long and whole. Yama speaks the words as he had done previously. Granted. And only then does the law complete its circuit. Yama stills. For the first time, death pauses. Not in error, not in anger, but in understanding. A boon granted by law cannot contradict itself, and so without spectacle, without protest, Yama turns back. And with him, the path responds. The narrowing of the world eases. The weight of the air lightens. Sound, long absent, begins to return. Not all at once, but gently. The hush of death gives way to the faint rustle of the wind, the distant echoes of the birds, and the soft persistence of life continuing. Color seeps back into the world, not suddenly, but naturally. Lose their grip. The ground beneath their feet feels solid again. The threshold between worlds recedes, sealing itself without ceremony. And Yama releases the soul that he carries. Set Yavin breathes. Life returns to him, not as a miracle, but as a correction. Law fulfilled, not undone. He opens his eyes and rises, steady and whole. Savitri does not cry out. She does not collapse. She simply moves to his side and walks with him, as she always had. Behind them, the path closes. Yama does not linger. He does not watch. The work here is finished, and he has other tasks to complete. And this is a true victory. Savitri does not defeat death. She does not break its rules. She does not demand exception. She understands the law so completely that it must honor her. Yama keeps his word. The boon stands. The order of the universe remains intact. No violence, no rebellion, no illusion of immortality, just precision. And this is why Savitri's story endures, because she proves that devotion, when guided by clarity, does not need to fight death. It only needs to walk with it, until death, bound by its own truth, must turn back. And as we have seen, Hades administers death. Hell accepts death. Osiris structures it. Izanami warns us not to cross its boundary, and Savitri teaches something even more rare. If you understand death deeply enough, you don't need to fight it at all. Sometimes it is the one where no one bleeds, and the laws remain intact. Odin and the Eye that... Now, before the name, before the gods speak about Ragnarok, was an unease that followed shadow. Fear implies ignorance. This was something much worse. This was suspicion. Now, Odin ruled as king of the Aesir, seated high in Asgard on the throne, surrounded by warriors, by gods, and by poets who praised his name. But praise rang hollow to him, because Odin knew a truth few dared to admit. A throne does not grant understanding. Power does not grant clarity, and gods, like men, can rule blindly. At night, when the halls grew quiet, Odin would sit in his throne. Hugin and Munin, thought and memories, his crows would return from their flights. They would perch on his shoulders and whisper what they had seen in the Nine Realms. Wars brewing, oaths breaking, fates tightening like knots, and each whisper confirmed what Odin already suspected, that something was coming, and worse, that it was already in motion. So Odin turned his attention not outward, but downward, to the roots of Yggdrasil, the world tree whose branches held the heavens, and drank from the places that even gods avoided. One root fed Mimir's well, a well not of water alone, but of memory, of truth, of things remembered by the world itself. It was said that the well remembered every mistake ever made, and every consequence yet to come. And it was guarded by Mimir, not a warrior, not a tyrant, but a keeper, because wisdom does not need force, only patience. Odin traveled alone, no army, no banners, no ceremony, a king who feared witness. When he reached the well, he did not admire it. He did not marvel. He already knew what it was. He asked for a drink. Mimir looked at him, not with reverence, but with recognition, as if he had been waiting. And the price was spoken plainly. One of your eyes. Not your blood, not your crown, not your life. Your eye, the thing with which you interpret the world. And the silence that followed was heavy, because Odin understood the meaning immediately. This was not payment for knowledge, this was proof of intent. To drink from the well was to accept that you would never see the world the same way again. And Odin could have turned back. He would still be king, he would still be worshipped, he would still be feared. Ignorance would have protected him. But Odin did not come for comfort. He came for truth. And truth always takes something with it. So Odin reached up and tore the eye from its socket. No miracle softened the act. No divine numbness dulled the pain. This was not a test. It was mutilation. A god breaking himself on purpose. Blood fell into the well, followed by the eye itself, which sank slowly as if the well were swallowing a memory. Only then did Mimir allow him to drink. And what Odin gained was not peace. He saw the ruins, not the symbols, but as forces that demanded sacrifice to Weld. He saw fate, not as a suggestion, but as a structure that was already built. He saw Ragnarok, not as a distant threat, but as a certainty moving steadily towards him. And worst of all, he understood that knowledge does not grant control. It only removes denial. When Odin rose from the well, he was one-eyed, not wounded, not diminished, but exposed. From that day forward, Odin would never rest. He wandered the realms disguised as an old man, testing warriors, tempting kings, destroying those who proved unworthy. Not out of cruelty, but out of desperation, because Odin knew something that the others did not, that war was coming whether they wanted it or not. Valhalla was not a reward, it was a recruitment center. In Herja were not heroes, they were resources. Mokosh, she who holds the threads, A Slavic myth. Before fate was spoken aloud, before destiny was written in words, there was Mokosh. She does not sit above the world. She does not sky. She is not thunder, and she is not flame. Mokosh is found closer to the ground, where hands touch soil, where feet grow tired, where life is shaped slowly, one motion at a time. She is the keeper of threads, not the sharp blade that cuts them. And in the quiet places of the old forest, where the air is damp and the earth remembers every footstep, it is said that Mokosh sits at her loom. She weaves not cloth but lives. Each thread is a moment. Each strand is a breath taken, without knowing what comes next. Each knot is a choice remembered, not judged, not corrected, only placed. Here nothing is rushed, nothing is wasted. Mokosh does not punish. She does not reward either. She does not pull the thread tight or let it fall loose without reason. She simply records. When people sleep, she works. When villages grow quiet and fires burn low, her loom continues its steady rhythm, a sound too soft to wake the mind, but strong enough to hold a world together. When hands spin wool or flax, they echo her labor. When fingers learn the motion of weaving, they remember something older than language. Mokosh teaches that fate is not a sudden fall, but a slow gathering. What is repeated becomes strong. What is neglected grows thin. What is pulled too hard will fray, and what is held too tightly will lose its shape. She governs patience, because patience is the shape of endurance. In old Slavic lands, Mokosh was honored not with towering temples, but with care, with clean floors, with honest work, with the steady keeping of promises that no one else could see. She was honored in the quiet dignity of daily life, in spinning and mending, in the acceptance that not all things can be hurried into being. To forget Mokosh is to forget that life is built by hands, not all at once, but again and again. She is present in the spinning wheel, in the rhythm of breath, in the slow work of becoming what one already is. She teaches that fate is not the enemy to be fought, but a pattern to be understood. When storms come, she does not shout them away. She simply waits. When sorrow comes, she does not deny it. She simply weaves it in. The thread darkens, but it does not break. And when joy appears, she does not cling. She allows it to pass through the loom, brightening the pattern for a time before settling back to memory. Mokosh reminds us that fate is not a chain, and it's not a prison. It is a fabric, strong enough to hold, soft enough to move, shaped by every motion made in silence. As night deepens, as the world grows slower, the loom does not stop. Thread by thread, moment by moment, she continues her work, not to control, not to command, but to hold. And in that holding, all things are allowed to rest. The myth of Arachne. Arachne is born in the land of Lydia, the daughter of a humble dyer of wool. She does not come from nobility. She is not taught by priests or temples, but what she has is skill. From a young age, her hands move with quiet certainty. Threads bend to her will, colors settle into patterns no one has ever seen before. Her weaving is not merely decorative, it's alive with detail, balance, and precision. People travel from distant towns just to watch her work. At first, they say her talent must be a gift from the goddess Athena, who is the patron of wisdom and weaving. But over time, as Arachne's reputation grows, people begin to speak differently about her. They say her skill does not resemble a gift. They say it surpasses the goddess herself. Arachne hears the rumors and does not deny them. She says plainly that she owes Athena nothing. She says if the goddess wishes to test her, she is welcome to do so. And Athena hears this. She comes to Arachne not in glory, but disguised as an old woman, leaning heavily on an old weathered staff. Her voice is calm, almost kind. She warns Arachne to show humility, to respect the gods, to withdraw her challenge. But Arachne refuses. She says skill should stand on its own. She says truth does not bow to authority. And then in that moment, the disguise falls away. Athena reveals herself, radiant and severe, and the true contest now begins. Two looms are set side by side. Athena weaves first. Her tapestry is perfect in structure and form. It shows the gods in all their splendor, majestic, orderly, unchallenged. Mortals who defy them are punished. And the message is clear. Power rules, and rebellion leads only to ruin. And then Arachne weaves. Her hands move swiftly, confidently, without any hesitation. And her tapestry tells a different story. She shows the gods as they truly behave. Zeus disguising himself to deceive mortal gods, abusing power, betraying trust, breaking the very rules to obey. In this, no exaggeration, only accuracy. When the tapestries are finished, the difference is unmistakable. Athena's work is truly flawless, but Arachne's is flawless as well. But Arachne's tells a truth that Athena cannot tolerate. The goddess inspects the weaving closely, looking for an error, but of course she would find none. And in that moment, Athena understands that she is not lost because of weakness, but because of honesty. Enraged, she tears Arachne's tapestry apart. She strikes the girl, destroying the work that exposed the gods. In despair, Arachne collapses. In some tellings, she attempts to end her life, unable to bear the loss of her art and her dignity. But Athena, her, not out of mercy, but to deliver judgment. She transforms Arachne into her body shrinks, her limbs twist, her fingers become legs, her loom becomes instinct. And finally, the goddess speaks again in her true form. Arachne will weave forever, but she will never again be praised. Her work will be hidden in corners and shadows. Her name will be remembered, but her voice will be gone. And so the spider weaves, thread after thread, pattern after pattern. Silent, persistent, unacknowledged. The gods retain their authority, and the truth remains, but small, overlooked, and easy to dismiss. And the world moves on. The origin of the five sons. Now this myth belongs to the Mexica people, often called the Aztecs, and these people understood time not as a straight path, but as a turning wheel. To them, the world did not begin once, nor was it destined to end only once. Creation was an act that could be repeated. Destruction was not a failure of the gods, but a condition of existence. And in this tradition, the world is sustained through balance, and balance is never permanent. When forces fall out of alignment, when power grows too rigid, when knowledge spreads beyond containment, or when the earth itself just grows weary, the age that holds the world comes to an end. What follows is not emptiness, but renewal. The Mexica called each age a sun. A sun is not only light in the sky, it is the order by which life is arranged. It governs how people live, how the gods rule, and how the earth responds to both. Each sun carries its own laws, its own expectations, and its own failures. Now, according to this cosmology, 4 suns rose and fell before this present age. Each was shaped by a different ruling force, and each ended when the force could no longer sustain the world it had made. These endings were not sudden accidents. They were the natural conclusion of imbalance left uncorrected. Now, the passing of a sun does not mean the death of everything. Life changes form. Memory does not entirely vanish. Traces remain in the land, in the sky, and in the people who come after. And for this reason, the present world is not separate from those that came before it. It is built upon their remains. Now, the current age is known as the 5th age, the sun of movement. It endures not because it is strong, but because it is fed. Its motion is constant, its ground uncertain. Unlike the worlds before it, this sun survives only through continuous offerings, binding the fate of the gods and humanity together in a form of dependence. The five suns are not merely stories of the past. They explain why the earth moves, why catastrophe returns in cycles, and why stability must be earned again and again. To understand the suns is to understand that the world is not guaranteed. It is held together by effort, sacrifice, and restraint, and it can be unmade. What follows is the account of those suns, the worlds that rose, the forces that ruled them, and the ways in each one came to its own end. The first sun, the age of strength. Now in this world the earth was firm and unyielding, and the sky hung low, as if watching what walked beneath it. The people of the first sun were tall and powerful, shaped in the image of the force that ruled them. Their limbs were heavy with muscle. Their voices carried far across the plains, and their heart did not know hesitation. Now this sun was governed by Tezcatlipoca, the lord of the smoky mirror, whose power lay in dominance and reflection. Under his rule, strength was the highest virtue. To overcome another was proof of worth. To stand unchallenged was to be favored by the gods. The people learned early that this world they belonged to could all be taken away from them. They built no delicate cities, for delicacy was for the weak. Their dwellings were thick-walled and low to the ground. Their tools were heavy, their weapons simple and brutal. What matters was not beauty, but endurance. What mattered was not harmony, but victory. In the first sun, order was maintained through fear. Those who rose to power held it by force, and those beneath them learned obedience through pain. The gods did not intervene to soften the world. They rewarded conquest and silence. Mercy was not taught, and restraint was not admired. The earth at first endured. The forest grew dense and dark. The mountains stood unbroken. Rivers cut their paths without resistance. Life was abundant, but it learned to hide. Creatures of claw and fang thrived, mirroring the nature of the people themselves. The world reflected what ruled it. Over time, the first sun forgot the difference between strength and excess. To dominate was no longer enough. They sought to dominate everything. They hunted not for need, but for proof. They fought not for survival, but for sport. The weak were not protected, and the fallen were never remembered. The gods watched, and the mirror, Lipoca, darkened. The balance that sustained the sun began to strain. Strength unchecked turned inward. The people no longer listened to the earth, nor to the warnings carried by the wind. They believed the world existed to endure them. Then the jaguars came. They did not arrive as an invasion, nor as a punishment announced from the sky. They emerged from the forest, from the mountains, from places where the world itself remembered itself. Silent and patient, they moved as the earth moves, without anger and without haste. The jaguars were not beasts alone. They were the return of the world's will. Where the people struck hardest, the jaguar struck back. Where strength had been worshipped, strength was answered. Villages fell without warning. Paths once claimed by men were reclaimed by claw and shadow. The night grew longer and the ground drank deeply. The people fought as they had always fought. They raised their weapons. They stood their ground. They believed that force could save them. It did not. For the jaguars did not tire. They did not seek glory. They did not rule. They corrected. One by one, the strong were taken. The cries of conquest gave way to silence. The earth closed over what remained. The forest thickened. The mountains stood as they had before. The sky lifted, indifferent. And so the first sun ended. Not in fire, not in blood, but in teeth and shadow. When the jaguars were through, the world was empty of those who had ruled it. Strength alone had proven insufficient to sustain creation. The earth rested, and the gods turned away from what had been made. From the remains of that age, something memory buried in muscle and bone, a warning carried forth into the next world, that strength without restraint will always devour itself. The second age of wind. The second sun rose in a world that moved. Where the first sun had heavily pressed upon the earth, this new age loosened its grip. The sky lifted higher. The air grew restless. Winds crossed the lands freely, carrying seed and memory from one place to another. The world no longer held still. This sun was governed by Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent, whose nature was creation, breath, and renewal. Under his guidance, life was shaped not by force, but by movement. Change was welcome. Travel was praised. To remain in one place for too long was to resist the nature of the world. The people of the second era of body and quicker of thought. They spoke many languages, and none belonged to them for long. Names shifted with age. Borders were not fixed. Knowledge passed easily from one mind to another, carried on like the wind with pollen. They learned to read the sky. Clouds were signals, breezes were messages. The movement of birds revealed paths yet unseen. The people followed these currents, settling briefly before moving on. Their dwellings were temporary, their cities flexible. Nothing was built to last forever because nothing was meant to. In this age, the gods did not rule through fear. They ruled through inspiration. The people were encouraged to learn, to question, and to seek beyond the horizon. Songs traveled farther than armies ever had. Ideas crossed distances faster than any foot could carry them. And for a time, the balance held. But movement